Have you ever wondered why some people only attract problems and financial difficulties in life, while others live in complete prosperity, seemingly without even trying that hard? The answer that will be revealed in this story lies in something so simple that you probably won't even believe it. But get ready, because what you're about to discover now can unlock your life, bringing you the financial abundance and peace of mind you've always wanted. Hi, I'm Charlie, a host of this story that's going to help transform your life. I'm happy you're here. Today we're going to talk about Aina, a programmer who was literally at rock bottom. She was broke, unemployed, drowning in debt, fighting with everyone and complaining about absolutely everything that happened in her life. She was one of those people you look at and think, wow, how does someone manage to attract so much bad stuff? But here's what's going to shock you. In just 21 days, Aina discovered a secret so powerful about human vibrational frequency that it completely transformed her financial and emotional reality. And the most incredible part? It all started with an intuition that she thought was completely bizarre and almost ignored. She discovered that there's a science behind personal transformation that very few people know about. And when applied correctly, it can literally rewrite your financial story. If you're going through financial difficulties, if you feel like nothing goes right in your life, this story will show you exactly what you need to do. Get ready to start your transformation and begin by practicing gratitude for this video appearing in your life. To do that, I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and like the video. If you don't like it at the end, just unlike it. Let's start the story. Aina woke up once again to the deafening sound of her phone alarm, which she had set to go off every 5 minutes because she knew she'd hit snooze several times. It was 7 in the morning on a gray Monday, and she already felt that familiar weight in her chest, the feeling that another difficult day was beginning. Damn, another day in this miserable life, she muttered as she dragged herself out of the narrow bed in the shared room where she'd been living for 3 months. The space was cramped, shared with 2 other people she barely knew, and the smell of dampness seemed to have become a permanent part of her morning routine. Can you put yourself in her shoes for a moment? Imagine waking up every day knowing your bank account is in the red, that bills are overdue, and that you have no idea where the money will come from to solve all this. It's a feeling that eats away at your soul, isn't it? Aina had always been like this, a person who saw the glass half empty, who found problems where others saw solutions, and it wasn't by accident. She grew up in a family where financial scarcity wasn't just a reality, but almost an identity. Her parents lived complaining about everything. The government, their bosses, the neighbors, the weather, the luck that never came. Money doesn't grow on trees, was her mother's favorite phrase. The rich only get richer, and the poor only get screwed, her father would add during tense dinners, where discussions about overdue bills were the main course. Aina absorbed these limiting beliefs like a sponge absorbs water. And now, at 28 years old, she was living exactly the life her parents always said she would have. Neuroscience teaches us that our brain is shaped by repetitive childhood experiences. Aina had programmed her subconscious mind to operate on a frequency of scarcity and victimization. Every negative thought, every complaint, every why me, was literally altering her human energy and her ability to attract opportunities. While drinking watered-down coffee because the good stuff was too expensive, Aina checked her phone and saw 3 more collection messages. Her stomach tightened. Damn vultures, she grumbled, deleting the messages without even reading them completely. This was her strategy. Ignore problems hoping they would simply disappear. What Aina didn't know is that every complaint, every angry thought, and every feeling of resentment was emitting a specific vibrational frequency that according to quantum physics, attracted more situations of the same energetic nature. It was as if she was tuned into this scarcity radio station 24 hours a day. In the last 6 months, since she lost her job at the startup where she worked as a programmer, Anna's life had become a relentless downward spiral. First came unemployment. The company went bankrupt overnight. Then her savings ran out quickly. Next, her boyfriend, tired of the constant complaints and the heavy energy she emanated, ended the relationship. "You're always negative, Anna. It's impossible to be around you without feeling drained by that bad energy," were his words in their last fight. At the time, she was furious and called him insensitive. Today, alone in that cramped room, she was beginning to understand that maybe he was right. The apartment she loved so much had to be returned. She couldn't afford the rent anymore, and the landlady, after 2 months of delays, lost her patience. Anna remembers perfectly the day she had to pack her bags and leave. She cried so much that her eyes were swollen for a week. Now, living in that shared room in a neighborhood she didn't even know well, Anna felt she had lost not just her financial stability, but also her identity. Who was she without her apartment, without her job, without her boyfriend? The answer that echoed in her mind was always the same: a failure. What hurt most was the feeling of powerlessness. Anna spent hours browsing job sites, sending resumes, doing video interviews, but nothing worked out. There was always something wrong. Either she was overqualified, or didn't have the profile they were looking for, or they simply didn't return her calls. Why does everything go wrong for me? She asked herself every night before sleeping. What did I do so wrong in life to deserve this? These questions, loaded with self-pity and victimization, were actually reinforcing the energetic blocks that prevented new opportunities from reaching her. The science of manifestation shows us that when we're in a constant state of resistance and complaint, we create an energetic barrier that repels exactly what we most desire. Anna was literally pushing financial abundance away from her with every negative thought. But the universe, as it always does, was preparing something Anna could never imagine. Sometimes, when we're at our lowest point, when we think there's no way out, that's exactly when life presents us with the most powerful transformation opportunity. Anna didn't know it, but her life was about to change in a way that would challenge everything she believed about reality, energy, and the power of the human mind. The answer to all her problems was closer than she imagined, waiting only for her to be ready to receive it. But was Anna really prepared to abandon years of mental conditioning and embrace a new way of seeing life? It was a Thursday afternoon when it happened. Anna was lying in bed, aimlessly scrolling through social media, that addictive activity she used to escape her own reality, when suddenly she felt something strange. A sensation she couldn't explain, as if someone had whispered an idea directly into her mind. What if I created an app that measured how much a person complains versus how much they give thanks during the day? The idea came out of nowhere, like lightning in a clear sky. Anna stopped scrolling through Instagram and stared at the ceiling of the room. "What a stupid thought," she muttered to herself, as if that would solve anything in anyone's life. But the idea wouldn't leave her head. It was as if it had installed itself there and decided to stay. Anna tried to distract herself by watching YouTube videos, but every few minutes there was that thought about the gratitude app again. Have you ever had one of those experiences? When an idea appears out of nowhere and simply won't go away, no matter how much you try to ignore it. Neuroscience explains that this happens when our subconscious is processing information and connections that our conscious mind doesn't yet fully understand. Anna shook her head, trying to get rid of that ridiculous thought. "I need money. Not to create some self-help app, she grumbled, going back to looking for job openings on specialized sites. But even while reading job descriptions, part of her mind kept elaborating on how this app would work. It would be something simple. The person would record each moment of gratitude and each complaint throughout the day. At the end, the app would calculate a score and give feedback about the person's energetic state. What nonsense, Anna thought. As if that could change anything in real life. What Anna didn't know is that she was receiving what many call divine intuition, those insights that come to us when we're ready to receive a new direction in life. Quantum physics suggests there are information fields we can connect to when our mind is receptive, even when our conscious personality resists. That night, Anna had trouble sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw app screens, functionalities, design, even the name gratimeter. Seriously, brain? You even invented a name for this crazy idea? She whispered in the dark, turning over in the narrow bed. When she finally managed to fall asleep, Anna had the most vivid dream she'd experienced in years. She saw herself programming the app, testing the functionalities, and strangest of all, she saw people using it and having their lives transformed. In the dream, she observed users who started depressed and negative, but gradually became more positive, more prosperous, happier. She woke up startled at 3 a.m, her heart beating fast. It was just a dream, she told herself. But the sensation of reality had been so intense that she could still feel the texture of the keyboard under her fingers, the glow of the computer screen, the satisfaction of seeing the code working perfectly. On the third night, the dream came back once more. Now Anna saw the app being used by thousands of people around the world. She saw testimonials from users who had transformed their financial lives, their relationships, their mental health. She saw herself not just as an unemployed programmer, but as someone who had created something that really made a difference in people's lives. When she woke up the next morning, Anna couldn't ignore it anymore. 3 consecutive dreams with the same theme couldn't be coincidence. She remembered reading somewhere that when the universe wants to send us a message, it starts by whispering. If we don't pay attention, it speaks louder. If we still ignore it, it shouts. Okay, universe, she said out loud, feeling a bit ridiculous for talking to herself. You win. I'm going to research this gratitude thing. Anna turned on her old laptop and started researching. What she found left her completely surprised. There were hundreds of scientific studies about the effects of gratitude on the human brain, mental health, manifestation ability, and even financial prosperity. Dr. Robert Emmons, a psychology professor at the University of California and one of the world's leading experts on gratitude, had dedicated decades of research to scientifically prove what spiritual traditions always knew: gratitude has the power to literally transform our reality. People who practice gratitude regularly report higher levels of well-being, optimism, happiness, and lower levels of depression and stress. Anna read, her eyes glued to the screen. Additionally, they tend to be more generous, more compassionate, and feel less lonely and isolated. But what really caught her attention was a study showing how gratitude affects our ability to make smarter financial decisions and attract prosperity opportunities. Grateful people tended to be less impulsive with money, more open to collaborations, and more likely to recognize and take advantage of opportunities that appeared in their lives. This is incredible, Anna murmured. How did I never know this before? Would Anna have the courage to trust this inner voice that whispered about possibilities she had never considered? Anna spent the next 3 days immersed in a true research marathon. It was as if she had discovered a hidden treasure that had been right under her nose the whole time. Every scientific article, every study, every testimonial she found about the power of gratitude left her more impressed and at the same time more irritated with herself. How could I have lived 28 years without knowing this? She muttered while reading about Dr. Robert Emmons' experiments. The researcher had conducted studies with thousands of participants, dividing them into groups. Some wrote about things they were grateful for, others about daily annoyances, and a third group about neutral events. The results were impressive. The gratitude group not only felt 25% happier, but also slept better, exercised more, had fewer physical symptoms of illness. And here was what most caught Anna's attention, showed greater optimism about the future and more willingness to help other people. But it was when Anna found Dr. Joe Dispenza's work on neuroplasticity that everything began to make sense in an almost frightening way. Dispenza explained how our repetitive thoughts create neural networks that literally shape our reality. When we think the same negative thoughts every day, we reinforce brain circuits that keep us trapped in patterns of scarcity and victimization. Our brain doesn't distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. Anna read, feeling a chill run down her spine. When we practice gratitude for things we don't yet have but want to manifest, we begin to create the neural networks associated with those future experiences. It was as if Anna was discovering the operating instructions for the human mind that no one had ever given her. All her life, she had operated in automatic mode, repeating the same mental patterns she learned in childhood, without ever questioning whether there was a different way to think and feel. "My God," Anna whispered, "I was programmed to be poor and unhappy." But the most impactful discovery came when she found studies on vibrational frequency and manifestation. Researchers like Dr. David Hawkins had mapped different emotional states and their corresponding energetic frequencies. Gratitude vibrated at one of the highest frequencies, close to love and joy, while complaint, resentment, and victimization vibrated at the lowest frequencies. Quantum physics suggested that these frequencies weren't just metaphors, but real energetic fields that influenced what we attracted into our lives. It was as if each person was a radio station constantly transmitting a specific frequency, and the universe responded by sending experiences that matched that frequency. "So I'm a scarcity radio station," Anna laughed bitterly. "Broadcasting 24 hours a day on the 'my life sucks' frequency, and wondering why I only receive more crap." It was when Anna found a quote that made her stop breathing for a few seconds. Gratitude is not just a response to abundance. Gratitude is what creates abundance. It was from an author named Deepak Chopra, and those words reverberated in her mind like a bell. "Gratitude creates abundance," Anna repeated. "It's not the other way around. It's not when I have money I'll be grateful. It's when I'm grateful I'll have money." "Okay," Anna said out loud, closing the laptop. "I'm convinced. I'm going to create this app." But even with all the excitement of the scientific discovery, Anna knew that knowledge without action was useless. She needed not only to create the app, but also test it on herself. She needed to become her own guinea pig in this personal transformation experiment. The question echoing in her mind now was different. Would she be able to break 28 years of mental conditioning and really change her vibrational frequency? Anna woke up the next morning with a sensation she hadn't experienced in months. Purpose. For the first time since losing her job, she had something concrete to do. Something that made sense not just for her financial situation, but for her soul. "Well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right," she muttered while turning on her old laptop. She opened a new document and started writing the app specifications. The concept was simple, but the execution needed to be smart. The gratimeter would be a tool that would help people consciously monitor their thought patterns throughout the day. The main interface would have two large buttons, a green one with a heart symbol to record moments of gratitude, and a red one with a cloud to record complaints or negative thoughts. Each entry would be accompanied by a text field where the person could briefly describe what happened. Aina spent 3 days programming non-stop. It was as if she was possessed by a creative energy she hadn't felt in years. She forgot to eat, slept few hours, but woke up refreshed and eager to continue. The first prototype was ready in a week. Aina looked at the app screen and felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. Now what? She thought. How do I test if this really works? The answer was obvious. She would be her own guinea pig. Aina downloaded the app on her phone and decided that for the next 21 days, the time neuroscience indicated as necessary to form new neural habits, she would religiously record every moment of gratitude and every complaint. Day 1 of the Aina experiment, she said out loud, as if documenting a scientific study. Let's see if this vibrational frequency thing is real or if I'm going crazy. The first day was revealing in a scary way. Aina discovered she complained much more than she imagined. By 10 a.m., she had already recorded 7 complaints about the neighbor's noise, bad coffee, cloudy weather, the bus delay, traffic, a collection message, and slow internet. 7 complaints in 4 hours, she murmured, looking at her phone screen. That's almost 2 per hour. My God, I really am a negative person, but the app didn't judge her. Instead, it showed a gentle message. We notice you're having a challenging start to your day. Remember, every moment is a new opportunity to choose a different perspective. How about finding one small thing you can be grateful for right now? Anna stopped and looked around. She was on the bus, heading to a job interview. She forced herself to find something she could be grateful for. Well, I have health to be here. I have an interview, which means someone found my resume interesting. The bus is working and taking me where I need to go. She recorded these 3 gratitudes in the app. Immediately, she felt a subtle change in her emotional state. It wasn't euphoria, but a kind of relief, as if a small weight had been lifted from her shoulders. The first days were the hardest. Aina discovered she had the automatic habit of complaining about practically everything: the weather, traffic, people, her financial situation, food, slow internet, politicians, noisy neighbors. It was as if her mind was a problem detector in permanent mode. I'm a complaining machine, she realized on the 3rd day, looking at the graphs the app generated. Her average vibrational frequency was consistently negative, varying between -3 and -6 points. But something interesting started happening in the 2nd week. Aina noticed she was becoming more conscious of her thoughts before expressing them. It was as if the simple act of having to record her complaints made her pause and question, does this really deserve my mental energy? In the 3rd week, something extraordinary happened. Aina woke up and, before even picking up her phone, felt naturally grateful. She didn't need to force it or look for reasons. Gratitude was simply there, like a warm sensation in her chest. This is strange, she murmured, but it was a good strange. It was as if something inside her had changed on a cellular level. She felt lighter, more hopeful, more alive. The app confirmed the change. Her average vibrational frequency had risen from -4 to +2. It wasn't ideal yet, but it was a significant transformation. Aina was literally rewiring her brain, creating new neural pathways associated with abundance and positivity. But what Aina didn't know is that this internal change was about to manifest in ways she could never imagine. The universe was responding to her new vibrational frequency, preparing synchronicities that would completely change the course of her life. Was Aina finally ready to receive the opportunities her new energy was attracting? It was the 15th day of the experiment when Aina realized something fundamental had changed inside her. It wasn't a dramatic revelation or a sudden moment of enlightenment. It was more subtle, like waking up and realizing that a pain you'd been carrying for so long simply wasn't there anymore. She was having breakfast, the same watered-down coffee as always, when she caught herself smiling for no apparent reason. "Why am I smiling?" she asked herself, and the answer that came was surprising. "Because I'm alive. Because I have this moment. Because I can taste the coffee, even if it's not the best in the world." Shauna stopped chewing and stared at the cup. 3 weeks ago, this same coffee would have been reason for at least 2 complaints recorded in the app. Horrible coffee, and I don't have money to buy decent coffee. Now, she was genuinely grateful to have it. "My God," she whispered, "I really changed." The transformation hadn't been linear. There were difficult days, especially between the 7th and 10th day, when Aina felt very strong internal resistance. It was as if her old mind was fighting against the new programming she was installing. Some researchers call this a healing crisis, the moment when old patterns make a desperate last attempt to stay in control. During those days, Aina had to consciously fight against thoughts like, "This is nonsense. You're wasting time. Gratitude doesn't pay bills." It was the voice of scarcity, programmed by years of family and social conditioning, trying to pull her back to the old vibrational frequency. But she persisted. Every time the skeptical voice appeared, Aina recorded it in the app as a complaint and consciously chose a gratitude thought to counterbalance. It was like a mental game where she was training to be the winner. It was on the 12th day that Aina had her first experience with what manifestation scholars call minor synchronicity. She was at the supermarket, counting pennies to buy the basics, when she found a $50 bill on the floor near the checkout. Her first reaction was disbelief. "This can't be happening to me," she thought. She looked around, searching for someone who might have dropped the money, but there was no one nearby. She gave the bill to the supermarket employee, who said if no one claimed it in 30 days, she could keep the money. 30 days, Aina murmured, doing the math. It was exactly the time left to complete her personal transformation experiment. Coincidence? She didn't know, but she recorded in the app, "I'm grateful for the possibility of having found this money. I'm grateful for acting honestly. I'm grateful because the universe might be starting to respond to my new energy." From the 15th day on, synchronicities began to multiply. Aina received an email from a company where she had applied 2 months ago, asking to reschedule an interview she thought wasn't going to happen. An old college friend contacted her out of nowhere, asking if she knew any freelance programmer for a small project. "This is weird," Aina commented to Carla, her roommate. "It's like things are starting to flow in a different way." Carla, who had observed Aina's gradual transformation over the past weeks, smiled. "You're different, Aina. How can I say, more magnetic. People want to be around you now." It was true. Aina had noticed that social interactions were getting easier. The building's doorman, who barely greeted her before, now always had a smile and sometimes even started conversations. The bakery attendant had started setting aside the freshest bread for her. Small kindnesses that didn't exist before were appearing everywhere. On the 18th day, something happened that Aina would never forget. She was coming back from another job interview, this time one that had gone surprisingly well, when she decided to stop at a cafe she had never entered before. She didn't have money for luxuries, but something pulled her inside. While waiting in line, she overheard a conversation between two women at the table next to her. One of them was talking about how hard it was to find competent developers for an app project focused on wellness and personal development. "Excuse me for interrupting," Aina said, approaching the table with her heart beating fast. "I couldn't help but overhear about your project. I'm a developer and recently created an app in the wellness area. Would you like to take a look?" 3 weeks ago, Aina would never have had the courage to approach strangers like this. But something had changed in her confidence, in her willingness to seize opportunities. It was as if gratitude had dissolved the fear of rejection that used to paralyze her. The women showed interest. Aina showed gratimeter on her phone, explained the concept, the scientific basis, the results she was getting on herself. They were impressed not just with the app, but with the passion and knowledge Aina demonstrated. One of them asked, "We'll get in touch. We're looking for exactly someone like you." Aina left the cafe floating. She recorded in the app, "I'm deeply grateful for having the courage to approach those people. I'm grateful for the opportunity that might be arising. I'm grateful for becoming a person who takes advantage of the chances life offers." But it was on the 21st day that the real magic happened. Aina woke up and, for the first time since starting the experiment, didn't immediately think about picking up her phone to record gratitudes. Gratitude was simply there, like a natural sensation, like breathing. She opened the app to make her morning entry and saw something that made her stop breathing. For the first time in 21 days, her gratitude score had significantly surpassed her complaints. Not by a little, but by a considerable margin. Her average vibrational frequency from the previous day had been +7, the highest score since she started the experiment. "I did it," she whispered, feeling tears of joy streaming down her face. "I really managed to change." The app showed a special message she had programmed to appear when someone reached 21 consecutive days of use. "Congratulations! You've completed a full cycle of neural reprogramming. Studies show that 21 days are enough to start forming new mental habits. You're no longer the same person you were 3 weeks ago. Keep practicing and watch how your new vibrational frequency attracts even more incredible experiences to your life." Aina looked in the mirror and saw a person she barely recognized. Not physically, although her eyes were brighter and her skin more luminous. The change was deeper. It was as if she had found a version of herself that had been hidden for years under layers of negativity and scarcity. She didn't know it, but her internal transformation was about to manifest externally in ways that would challenge everything she believed about how life works. The universe had noticed her new vibrational frequency and was preparing a series of events that would completely change her reality. Was Aina prepared to receive the abundance her new energy was magnetizing? It was a Tuesday, exactly on the 22nd day of Aina's experiment, when the phone rang. She was preparing a simple breakfast, but this time with a smile on her face, something that had become natural in recent weeks. The number on the screen was unknown, and normally she wouldn't answer, fearing it was another collection call. But something made her answer. "Anna? This is Mark, remember me? We worked together at Tech Solutions about 2 years ago." Aina almost dropped her cup. Mark was one of the most talented programmers she knew, someone she had always admired professionally, but with whom she had lost contact after leaving the company. "Mark, of course I remember. How did you get my number?" she asked, genuinely surprised. "I got it from Julia in HR. Look, I know it might seem strange for me to call out of the blue, but you appeared in my thoughts yesterday, and I felt I needed to get in touch. How are you? What have you been up to?" Aina felt a chill run down her spine. You appeared in my thoughts. It was exactly the type of synchronicity she had read about in manifestation studies. When we change our vibrational frequency, we start attracting people and situations that are aligned with our new energy. Well, to be honest, I'm going through a transition phase, Jaina replied, carefully choosing her words. 3 weeks ago, she would have vented about unemployment, debts, difficult life. Now, something made her speak more positively. I'm developing a very interesting personal project, an app in the wellness area. Really? What an incredible coincidence. The excitement in Mark's voice was palpable. Aina, I need to tell you something. Remember how I always dreamed of having my own company? Well, I finally left tech solutions and opened a startup focused on mental health and wellness apps. We're growing fast, but I desperately need developers who understand both the technical part and the purpose behind what we're doing. Aina felt her heart racing. It was as if the universe was orchestrating a perfect symphony of opportunities. Mark, this is unbelievable. Would you like to see what I'm developing? They arranged to meet at 3 in the afternoon. Aina hung up the phone and stood still for a few minutes, processing what had just happened. She opened the Gratimeter app and recorded, "I'm deeply grateful for Mark getting in touch. I'm grateful for the perfect synchronicity of this moment. I'm grateful for becoming a person who attracts incredible opportunities." At 3 o'clock sharp, she was at the cafe where she had arranged to meet Mark. He arrived a few minutes later, and Aina was impressed by the change. Mark had always been a positive person, but now there was something different about him, an entrepreneurial energy, a confidence she didn't remember seeing before. Aina, you look great. There's something different about you, more luminous. I don't know, Mark said, giving her a warm hug. It was the third person in a week who commented on her luminosity. Aina was beginning to understand that internal transformation really reflected externally in ways she never imagined. Mark started talking about the company he had created called Mindflow. They developed apps that helped people manage anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges through techniques based on neuroscience and positive psychology. The problem is that most developers I find are excellent technically, but don't understand the depth of what we're trying to do. They see only code. They don't see the transformative impact these tools can have on people's lives, Mark explained. Aina felt an immediate connection. It was exactly how she felt about Gratimeter. Mark, I understand perfectly. Let me show you what I developed. She opened the app on her phone and started explaining the concept. She talked about the scientific basis, the studies by Robert Emmons and Joe Dispenza, the connection between gratitude and vibrational frequency, and mainly about her own transformation experience over the past 21 days. Mark listened with increasingly wide eyes. Aina, this is genius. Do you have any idea of the potential this has? And you tested it on yourself. This is incredible. Can I see the data? Aina showed the graphs the app generated, her evolution over the 21 days, the change in average vibrational frequency. Mark was impressed not just with the functionality, but with the scientific depth behind each feature. Aina, I have a proposal for you, Mark said, leaning forward at the table. How about you come work with me? Not as an employee, but as a partner. We can integrate Gratimeter into Mindflow's ecosystem, and you can lead the development of a complete line of apps. Based on positivity neuroscience, Aina felt as if the ground had disappeared from under her feet. Partner? Mark, I don't have money to invest. You don't need money. Aina, you have something much more valuable. Knowledge, passion, and a tool that's already working. I have the infrastructure, the contacts, the initial capital. Together, we can create something revolutionary. It was as if all the manifestation studies Aina had read were materializing in front of her. She had elevated her vibrational frequency through gratitude, and now the universe was responding with opportunities that surpassed her most optimistic dreams. I need to process this, Jaina said, feeling tears of gratitude in her eyes. It's more than I ever imagined possible. Of course, take all the time you need. But Aina, I feel this isn't coincidence. Yesterday I was meditating, asking the universe to show me the right path to expand the company. And this morning you appeared in my thoughts so strongly that I couldn't ignore it. I had to call. Jaina smiled. Mark was also speaking the language of manifestation and synchronicities. It was as if the universe had brought together two people who were on the same vibrational frequency, ready to create something bigger together. They spent 2 more hours talking, planning, dreaming. Mark showed Mindflow's office on his phone, introduced the team via video call, explained ongoing projects. Aina felt like she was living a waking dream. Aina went home floating. She recorded in gratimeter, "I'm infinitely grateful for this magical day. I'm grateful for Mark appearing in my life. I'm grateful for becoming a person who deserves and attracts incredible opportunities. I'm grateful for discovering that the universe really responds when we change our energy." But even with all the euphoria, Aina felt a small voice whispering fears in her mind. What if you're not good enough? What if it's all too good to be true? What if you mess everything up like you always do? It was the voice of limiting beliefs, of energetic blocks that still needed to be dissolved. Aina was about to discover that transforming external life was just the beginning. The real work would be facing the internal demons that still tried to sabotage her. Would Aina be able to overcome the deep fears that threatened to destroy the opportunity of her dreams? Aina spent the entire night awake. Not from excitement, as would be expected after such an incredible day, but from pure anxiety. It was as if two versions of her were waging a silent war in her mind. The new Aina, confident and grateful, fighting against the old Aina, full of fears and self-sabotage. "You don't deserve this," whispered the familiar voice of scarcity. "People like you don't become company partners. You're going to disappoint Mark. You'll mess everything up like you always do." Aina got up at 5 in the morning, exhausted from the mental battle. She picked up her phone and opened Gratimeter, but for the first time in weeks, she couldn't find anything to be grateful for. Anxiety had taken over completely, blocking her ability to access elevated energetic states. "Damn," she muttered, looking at the app screen. "Just when everything was going right, my mind decides to sabotage." She recorded her first complaint in days. "I'm afraid. I'm not good enough for this opportunity." The app responded with a message that made her stop. "We notice you're facing internal resistance. This is normal when we're about to make a quantum leap in our life. Remember, fear is just the ego trying to keep us in the comfort zone of scarcity." Aina took a deep breath. She had read about this in Joe Dispenza's studies. When we start changing our identity at a deep level, the subconscious panics and tries to pull us back to old patterns, even if those patterns are destructive. "Okay," she said out loud, "if it's a battle you want, it's a battle you'll get." Aina decided to use the mental reprogramming techniques she had studied. She sat on the bed, closed her eyes, and began observing her thoughts without judgment, like a scientist studying an interesting phenomenon. "I don't deserve success. Where did this belief come from?" Aina remembered her parents always saying that people like them didn't have the right to dream big. "The rich are born rich, the poor die poor," was a phrase she heard constantly in childhood. "I always mess everything up." This came from past experiences, relationships that ended, jobs she lost, projects that didn't work out. But Aina realized she was generalizing. Not everything she touched turned into disaster. I'm not smart enough. This was particularly cruel. Aina had a degree in computer science, had worked at respected companies, created a functional app by herself. But the voice of inadequacy insisted on whispering that she was an imposter. Aina opened a document on her phone and started writing affirmations based on real evidence. I deserve success because I work hard and have value to offer. I'm capable of learning and growing with each experience. I created something unique and valuable that can help thousands of people. I attracted this opportunity because I elevated my vibrational frequency. But just repeating affirmations wasn't enough. Aina knew she needed to feel the truth behind the words. She began using a technique she had learned in manifestation studies, visualization with elevated emotion. She closed her eyes and imagined herself working at Mindflow's office, collaborating with Mark, seeing gratimeter helping people around the world. But instead of just seeing the images, she forced herself to feel the emotions: pride, accomplishment, gratitude, abundance. At first, the emotions seemed forced, artificial. But Aina persisted. With each repetition of the visualization, the sensations became more real, more visceral. It was as if she was training her nervous system to get used to success, to stop interpreting it as something dangerous or impossible. After an hour of intense mental work, Aina felt different. Not completely healed. She knew that reprogramming decades of conditioning would take time, but more centered, more confident. She picked up her phone and called Mark. Aina. Good morning. How are you? Mark, I need to be honest with you about something, Aina said, deciding to bet on vulnerability. Last night, I panicked. All my fears and insecurities about not being good enough for this opportunity started surfacing. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Aina held her breath, fearing Mark would change his mind. Anna, Mark finally said, thank you for being honest. You know what that tells me about you? That you're a real, conscious person who's willing to face your fears instead of pretending they don't exist. That makes me even more confident in our partnership. Aina felt tears of relief in her eyes. Really? Of course. Aina, do you think I never had those fears? When I decided to leave my secure job to open the company, I spent weeks without sleeping, questioning if I was doing the right thing. Fear is part of growth. What matters is not letting it paralyze us. Mark, I want to accept your proposal. But I need you to know I'm in a process of personal transformation. I'm still learning to deal with limiting beliefs and self-sabotage patterns. Anna, that's not a problem. It's a differentiator. You're doing the internal work that most people avoid their entire lives. That makes you more conscious, more empathetic, more capable of creating products that really help people. Besides, your transformation journey is living proof that gratimeter works. Aina smiled. Mark was right. Her vulnerability wasn't a weakness, it was a strength. Her experience with scarcity and transformation made her more qualified, not less, to help other people on similar journeys. Then it's official, Aina said, feeling new courage rising in her chest. I accept being your partner. After hanging up, Aina recorded in the app, I'm grateful for having the courage to be vulnerable. I'm grateful for Mark seeing my fears as strength, not weakness. I'm grateful for learning that growth and fear can coexist. But the internal battle wasn't over. Over the following days, Aina faced waves of anxiety, moments of doubt, internal voices that tried to convince her she was making a gigantic mistake. She discovered that transformation isn't a linear process. There were days when she felt confident and empowered, and others when old patterns came back with full force. The difference now was that she had tools to deal with these oscillations. Aina started using a technique she called dialogue with fear. Instead of trying to suppress negative thoughts, she wrote them in a notebook and then responded with compassion, as if she were counseling a dear friend. Fear. You're going to fail and disappoint everyone. Response. I understand you're trying to protect me, but failing is part of learning. Even if this project doesn't work out, I will have grown and learned valuable things. 3 weeks after accepting the partnership with Mark, Aina was in a meeting with potential investors, presenting Gratimeter with a confidence she never imagined she possessed. Not because she had completely eliminated her fears, but because she had learned to act despite them. Gratimeter isn't just an app, Aina told the room full of investors. It's a transformation tool based on neuroscience that can help millions of people reprogram their brains for abundance and happiness. She talked about scientific studies, about her own transformation journey, about the app's social impact potential. And for the first time in her life, Aina felt completely aligned with her purpose, radiating an energy that magnetized everyone's attention in the room. Now was the moment of truth. Was Aina finally ready to receive all the abundance her new vibrational frequency was attracting? 6 months after the meeting with investors, Aina was sitting in her new office, a bright space on the 22nd floor of a commercial building, downtown, looking out the window at the view that previously only existed in her boldest dreams. Gratimeter had become a global phenomenon, with over 2 million users in 40 countries. But the most impressive transformation wasn't in download numbers or financial success. It was the woman Aina had become. She barely recognized the desperate person full of complaints who lived in that shared room less than a year ago. Anna, the last quarter results are in, Mark said, entering the office with a radiant smile. We grew 300% compared to the previous quarter. And there's more. Stanford University wants to do an official scientific study on Gratimeter's effects on users' neuroplasticity. Aina smiled, but not with the desperate euphoria of someone who finally escaped scarcity. It was a serene smile from someone who had learned that true abundance comes from within, and that external success is just a natural reflection of deep internal transformation. That's incredible, Mark. Remember when you called me that day? I was literally at rock bottom. No money, no prospects, complaining about everything. If someone had told me that in less than a year I'd be here, I would have thought it was a joke. Mark sat in the chair across from Aina's desk. You know what impresses me most? It's not just the app's success, it's how you changed as a person. You radiate a completely different energy. It's like you found a version of yourself that always existed, but was hidden. It was true. Aina had discovered that real transformation isn't about becoming someone different, but about removing the layers of conditioning that prevent us from being who we really are. She always had intelligence, creativity, and potential. What changed was that she stopped sabotaging herself and started operating from a frequency of worthiness and abundance. Aina's phone rang. It was Sarah, a journalist from Forbes magazine, who was doing a story about entrepreneurs who used technology to solve personal problems and ended up creating global solutions. Anna, I have one final question for the article, Sarah said. What advice would you give to someone going through what you went through, unemployed, in debt, no prospects, and who thinks they'll never be able to get out of that situation? Aina thought for a moment. It was a question she received frequently, and it always took her back to those dark days when she thought her life would never change. Sarah, I'd say 3 things. First, Your current situation isn't your permanent identity. I identified so much with being an unlucky person that I couldn't imagine a different reality. But we're beings in constant transformation, and we can consciously choose the direction of that transformation. Second, start small, but start today. I didn't change my life overnight. I started by recording one gratitude at a time, one positive thought at a time. Neuroscience shows us that small, consistent changes create big transformations over time. And third, trust your intuitions even when they seem crazy. The gratimeter idea seemed completely bizarre to me at first. But our intuition often knows things our logical mind doesn't yet understand. Sometimes the universe whispers the exact solution we need, but we have to be open to hear it. After hanging up, Aina opened gratimeter on her phone. She still used it religiously every day and recorded. I'm grateful for being able to share my story and maybe inspire other people. I'm grateful for discovering that we're much more powerful than we imagine. I'm grateful for every difficulty I went through, because it brought me here. The app responded with a message she had recently added. Remember, you didn't attract your past difficulties because you deserved to suffer. You attracted them because you were operating from a scarcity frequency that was programmed into you since childhood. Now that you know how it works, you can consciously choose a different frequency. Aina looked out the window and saw a woman on the sidewalk, clearly stressed, talking on the phone with a frustrated expression. 6 months ago, she would have thought, poor thing, life really is hard. Now, her first thought was, I hope she discovers the power she has to transform her situation. It was this change in perspective that impressed her most about herself. She had gone from victim of circumstances to conscious creator of her own reality. Not that everything was perfect. She still faced challenges, still had difficult days. But now she knew she had tools to deal with any situation. Her phone rang again. It was her mother. Aina, dear, I saw the article about you online. I'm so proud but also confused. How did you manage to change so much? You were such a negative girl, always complaining about everything, Anna smiled. Her parents had been one of the most surprising transformations in her life. When they started seeing the changes in her, they got curious. They downloaded gratimeter, started practicing, and gradually the entire family dynamic changed. Mom, remember those phrases you guys always said? Money doesn't grow on trees, life is hard, people like us don't have luck? I discovered those beliefs were literally programming my brain for scarcity. When I changed my thoughts, my reality changed with them. It's incredible, daughter. Your father and I are doing those gratitude exercises you taught us, and our life is improving too. He got a promotion after 20 years in the same position, and I went back to painting, something I hadn't done in decades. After hanging up, Aina reflected on how personal transformation has a domino effect. When we change our vibrational frequency, we not only attract different experiences, but also inspire people around us to make their own transformations. Gratimeter now had a testimonial section where users shared their transformation stories. Aina reads them every day and was always moved by reports from people who had come out of depression, found new jobs, improved relationships, or simply discovered a new way of living. I was broke and depressed when I discovered the app, wrote one user. Today, 6 months later, I have my own business and feel like the most grateful person in the world. Gratitude literally saved my life. My marriage was ending because I only knew how to complain, shared another user. Gratimeter taught me to focus on what my husband does well instead of what bothers me. Today we're happier than ever. Jaina realized she had created much more than an app. She had created a collective transformation tool, a way to elevate human consciousness one person at a time. That night, Aina returned to her apartment, a beautiful and cozy place she had carefully chosen, prioritizing natural light and positive energy. She prepared a simple dinner, but this time not for lack of money, but because she had learned to find joy in simple things. Before sleeping, she did her nightly gratitude ritual, not in the app, but in a physical journal she kept on her nightstand. She wrote, "I'm grateful for having the courage to follow an intuition that seemed crazy. I'm grateful for every person Gratimeter has already helped, and for all those it will still help. I'm grateful for discovering that we are infinitely powerful beings, capable of rewriting our story at any moment. I'm grateful for learning that abundance isn't something we conquer, but something we already are when we remove the blocks that prevent us from seeing it." Aina closed the journal and looked out the bedroom window. The city sparkled below, full of people who, like she once was, might be thinking their lives would never change. She smiled, knowing that each of these people had the same transformation potential she had discovered. Aina's journey had proven something that spiritual traditions always knew and modern science was beginning to prove. We are creators of our own reality. When we change our internal vibrational frequency, the external world reorganizes to reflect that change. She was no longer the unemployed programmer drowning in debt who complained about everything. She had become a prosperous entrepreneur, a solution creator, a person who radiated gratitude and abundance. But more important than anything, she had become someone who knew, with absolute certainty, that anyone can make the same transformation. Aina's life was living proof that no matter how deep you've fallen, no matter how many years you've lived in scarcity, no matter how programmed you are for negativity, you can always choose a different frequency and create a completely new reality. And that, perhaps, was the greatest gratitude of all. Wow, what an incredible journey we just experienced together, right? Aina's story isn't just an inspiring narrative. It's a mirror that reflects the transformation potential that exists within each of us. Stop for a moment and put yourself in Aina's place at the beginning of this story. How many times have you felt exactly like her? Constantly complaining, thinking life was conspiring against you? Now I want to ask some questions that could change your life forever. Are you ready to stop being a victim of your circumstances and become the conscious creator of your reality? Do you have the courage to question the limiting beliefs you inherited from your family, society, or past experiences? Are you willing to do the internal work necessary to elevate your vibrational frequency and attract the abundance you deserve? I challenge you to do an experiment for the next 21 days. Every day, before sleeping, write 3 things you're genuinely grateful for. Not obvious or superficial things, but gratitudes that really touch your heart. Every time you catch yourself complaining, pause and ask, how can I see this situation from a different perspective? Observe your words, your thoughts, your energy. Are you broadcasting on the frequency of scarcity or abundance? Remember, you don't need to believe this will work. Aina didn't believe it at first either. But she did it anyway, and the results spoke for themselves. Maybe soon you'll discover, like Aina discovered, that you always had the power to create the life of your dreams. You just needed to learn how to use that power. Now a message. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning about manifestation, abundance, neuroscience, and personal transformation. We have much more incredible content coming that can accelerate your journey even more. And please, leave a comment telling us what impacted you most in this story. Your experience can inspire other people who are going through what you've already been through. Always remember, you deserve all the abundance in the world because you were born to be happy. I'll see you in the next video.